Hello, this is Debbie reporting again from King's Community Church, and I want to have you meet Bethany Johnson. Bethany's been with us, well, since birth, so I wanted to talk to Bethany and just get a few tidbits about her. Bethany, why don't you tell us about yourself and your family, and then go right on to school.
Well, hi, I'm Bethany Johnson. A few of you may have seen me throughout the years growing up. I am the daughter of Philip and Florence Johnson. They typically sit around the front. My dad plays the piano. And anything else?
Tell you about it. Go right into school. Where did you go to school for high school and then for college?
So for high school, I went to this school on the south side of Chicago called Lindblom Math and Science Academy. It was a pretty rigorous school. Really, it's like a college prep school. So I went right into the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And I started off as a history major. And after that, I just kept adding on more areas of study. First I went to Africa. I went to Tanzania. I was taking Swahili classes, and that's the national language in Tanzania, which is how it got me on that trip, which I'll get to later. But from being in that trip and being able to sort of speak the language with the people there, it inspired me to want to just minor in the language itself, try to use that for my future career. And so what I want to do, I should say, is I want to be a museum curator. And initially with history, my focus was African American history. After, though, going to Africa, it did kind of make me want to get more interested into Africa. And I became interested with thinking about museums. I noticed that it would probably be a good idea to know also art history, because there's just so many art museums out there. And after taking a few art history courses, I realized I wanted to focus more on African art. So my main focus now, I would say, is African art history. I do a little African American history on the side still. And that's the basis of my studies.
Your studies. Now, when you went to Africa and you went 3 years in a row and you stayed several weeks each time. Tell me what the first time you landed there and you seen Africa and you seen Tanzania and the people and you met the people. What was it like?
The first time I went, it was I think for a lot of black people, especially someone who studies African American history, it's like a dream to go to Africa in general. Tanzania is in East Africa, so not quite where most African Americans are from. It's more West Africa, but it's still cool to be able to go to Africa in general. And of course, the first thing I noticed was just how hot it was, and how friendly the people there were. You might go somewhere in Europe, no one's gonna be too friendly with you, but Tanzanians are definitely a friendly people. It's like a culture where you sort of say hi to just strangers if you see them, people you know every time you see them, and being able to speak the language with them. Whenever we didn't have our tour guides around, I was basically the designated
translator.
Yeah, the translator, and that was really cool. It even took me on. One time we were having a tour and we met these two women who were just fishing in the lake, and they didn't speak any English, and we started talking to them, mainly me, and they were just like, you know what, we thought you were a little bit bougie at first, but you're actually pretty cool. You guys want to come to our house? We're going to cook for you. We just caught all these fish. We'll cook you guys a meal. Just come on over. Your tour guide knows where we live, so just you guys could bring your whole group. And I told the rest of my group, and they just weren't trying to go at first. I don't know, that seems rude. And I was like, no, we have to go. It's an actual, it's not part of a tour or anything, not westernized. It's an actual African house.
It's nice.
And we definitely saw how different types of classes lived. They were more on the lower class, so we were in the house was sort of like made of clay, and they gave us a tour of the house, and we sat on the ground to eat the food, and they made it all for free. We paid them though, because that's just too much. And they were really friendly to us. So I think that sort of captures the Tanzanian spirit, I would say, just like opening their home to strangers.
Now, did you get a chance to see their artwork, their clay, their potteries, their woodworking, and things like that when you were there?
Yeah, we I would say art the I guess the art pieces that stood out to me most when I was there. We did go to some museums, but the museums there I would say are like just not as funded, so they don't look quite as you know as much infrastructure as they do like in Western countries. But what stood out to me most is when we visited this Maasai village. They're like a ethnic group, I guess. We would call them tribe, but an ethnic group there, and they have these. They're known for having these circular beads that they make, and they had all these different jewelry that you could buy because you gotta make some profit if you're gonna just be showing a bunch of Americans your culture. And actually, that's them there. These are some men. They were showing us one of the dances that to do. It was like their mating dance. Whoever jumps the highest, like, gets the girl. It's supposed to be the thing. And these are some of the kids. That's where that's the Maasai home there. There are cows in the back. They're like a nomadic people and pastoral, so they just travel around with cows, basically. Um, I would say their artwork stood out to me the most. When I think of Tanzania, I think of Maasai people, honestly. There's a lot of other ethnic groups, but those are my favorite for their beadwork. And I guess also furthermore, it's a coastal country, like on the coast of the Indian Ocean, so they have a lot of Arabic infused artwork and culture as well. So you'll see a lot of like Qurans, and that'll still have like Swahili designs in them. So I don't know. Yeah, I did see a lot of artwork while I was there.
Good. Now the language, because that was your major that you took it when you got back home. It was you went already had it, but then you doubled up on it a little to make it another major. The Swahili. How did that inspire you when you were talking with these people and no one else could communicate and you could? What was that like?
That was probably the coolest thing. My first time going to Tanzania, we had a layover in Turkey, and we actually got to stay a day there in Istanbul. And like we couldn't speak to anybody really unless we had a tour guide there. But as soon as we got to Tanzania, like I could actually have conversations with some of the people, even though I was just like my first year of having Swahili classes. I was still able to have some conversation with the people, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, how many black people back in America can say that they can speak an African language? Like, most people take Spanish or French, speaking Swahili out there. And I felt like what made me choose Swahili in the first place was because I knew it was sort of important to African American history. I just didn't know how, which I eventually did learn. I don't know if you want me to talk about that, but for right now, I'll just say I figured by minoring in Swahili, I could then use it to better understand more of like African American history. But coincidentally, it honestly led me to learn more about African history and African art history. But it was cool. To simplify it, it was really cool.
That's awesome. Now you also have gone to Europe. You did a little European tour. I know you had did a semester in England, but then you did kind of toured around the countryside of Europe. How was that for you?
That was amazing. Because I'll be honest, after the third time I went to Tanzania and being there for a month, the first few times it was like a week. So like it's like. If the first time you're visiting a place and you go there for a week, like, wow, this is amazing. But the third time and you're there for a month and you're squatting in a hole somewhere to like use the bathroom and bugs are biting you, it gets to be a lot. I will admit. So going to Europe, it was like, okay, this is a lot more. I'm familiar with it, with like the culture and just like the way of living. It was more familiar. Not as kind, I will say. People weren't as nice there, but it was really cool. Like London's one of those big cities that you see on TV, so I was getting to see all the sights. Taking pictures with the telephone booths and everything, and hearing all the cool accents. And going to different countries in Europe is like cheaper than going from Chicago to Atlanta. So we were just anytime, we had a little, maybe over the weekend, or if it was either me or my friend here, Savant's birthday, we went to different countries for our birthdays. And here's me and my mom eating some noodles in Italy for my birthday in Rome. It was a really nice experience. I definitely would recommend it.
Very cool. Now you're entering into the graduate stage of your studies. You want to continue on. You want to eventually, hopefully, work for a museum and talk about that. Tell us, do you want to go actually do a study abroad for your graduate work?
Yes. So the school that I really, really want to get into, like I'll be okay with other schools, but the school I really want to get into, it's called the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. And SOAS for short, if I just call it SOAS about this. And it's basically the world's leading institution that focuses on Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. And specifically for like their art history master's programs, if you like want to go on to become a curator or something, or like a gallery worker or something in like the museum field or art field, they teach practices that sort of address issues of like, and these are big terms which I think I can explain a little briefly later, but they address sort of issues within museums like decolonization and restitution of artifacts that were stolen. So basically, decolonization is when you take a Western museum that sort of has a certain of, like let's say Africa, they'll have an African exhibit, but they'll have a certain ideal in their minds how Africa is, and not really consult with anybody that is African, just sort of like with a Western mindset, create an exhibit to appeal to a Western audience when it's not really their culture. So they sort of address ways to combat that, and restitution is basically just returning property that was stolen. So a lot of Western museums hold artifacts from a lot of non-Western countries that were initially through their acquisition gotten through like conquest, murder, all the unsatisfactory sort of ways, just not really legal ways. And that is exactly what I want to do with my career. I don't want to just be a curator that goes, with the mold, just supporting Western colonization within museums of these places. I want to be able to dismantle the system a little bit, but not in a too alarming way, So that is my next plan. And what I really want to do with that is specifically focus on a dissertation. After being in London and seeing the museums there, I noticed I just didn't feel really represented there. And after being in Africa, I didn't really feel like I saw Africa represented there. Like they have one of the world's largest collections of African artifacts, but it seemed very British, or just like a display case of stolen objects, basically. So I wanted to focus my dissertation on the British Museum there and their Sainsbury African Gallery, and talk about, probably focusing on a specific, I'm thinking like a Swahili artifact, might as well use that minor. And try to talk about, just address the issues of how a lot of objects there were acquired, and just bring more attention to it, because not too many people are really working on that issue, and not too many people even know that is an issue in museums. And that's sort of my mission for right now.
Bethany, this is awesome. Thank you for enlightening all of us, me, and I know everyone who's watching. And we're all very, very proud of you. And we just know God's going to continue on blessing you and guiding you and keeping you safe, because you've been traveling a lot, and we just praise God that that's going to happen. So thank you for joining us with History Makers. And ladies and gentlemen, this is Bethany Johnson.
Thank
Thank you for joining us today. God bless you.